All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Canada is the Rocky Mountains. Canada is Prince Edward Island. Canada is the country made for love. Canada is La Belle Province. Canada is the Yukon Mine. Canada is a country full of love. We have love for our neighbor of whatever creed or color. We have love for our cities and our valleys and our plains. We have a voice that is calling, telling all the world we're willing to welcome them to this great land. For that's what Canada is. Canada is the Rocky Mountains. Canada is Prince Edward Island. Canada is a country made for love. Canada is La Belle Province. Canada is the Yukon Mine. Canada is a country full of hey. We have faith in our future. We're ready for tomorrow. We have faith in our children, for our future's in their hands. We have a voice that is calling, telling us to keep on hoping. For time will make this wild land great, and that's what Canada is. Canada is the Rocky Mountains. Canada is Prince Edward Island. Canada is a country made for love. Canada is La Belle Province. Canada is the Yukon Mine. Canada is a country loving peace. We have peace in our valleys. We're happy and contented. We have peace in our cities, and our boundaries have no chains. We have a voice that is calling, telling all free men we're willing to show them how to live in peace. For that's what Canada is. Canada is the Rocky Mountains. Canada is Prince Edward Island. Canada is a country made for love. Canada is La Belle Province. Canada is the Yukon Mine. Canada is a country full of love. Canada is the Rocky Mountains.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we will cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and our good friends just down the street from our studios here in St. Catharines. And of course, I'm talking about your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ AM, and of course, they also stream us live and around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. Wow, what a great show we've got for you tonight, X Zone Nation. My first guest tonight is a gentleman that I have the pleasure and honor of calling a friend. His name is Mark Anthony, and he is also known as JD Psychic Explorer. He also is known as the Psychic Lawyer. He is a fourth-generation psychic medium who communicates with spirits. He is an Oxford-educated attorney licensed to practice in the beautiful state of Florida, Washington, D.C., and before the United States Supreme Court. Mark travels to mystical locations in remote corners of the world to examine ancient mysteries and supernatural phenomenon. Joining me now is Mark Anthony. And Mark, welcome back to the X Zone. And to you, my friend, and to all the great people that work with you, a very happy New Year.
Thank you, Rob. It's always an honor and a pleasure being on the X Zone. So thank you, and thank you to everyone tuning into the X Zone.
Mark, what have you been up to? You're the busiest person I know, next to yours truly here, of course. The last time you and I were talking, you had so many dates that were booked, and you're talking about the Afterlife Frequency. You're talking about psychic mediums. You're talking about reincarnation. When does Mark Anthony rest?
Well, I did take a week off between Christmas and New Year's,
Woohoo!
and it was great because I got to see family
Uh huh.
and that. But Rob, I love what I do,
Hmm.
and there's an expression that when you love what you do, every day you're on vacation. So even though it does require a lot of effort, it does require a lot of energy. I just absolutely love what I do, and I'm starting a whole U.S. tour, and I've got two online events, February 14th and 15th, of which are online light circles limited to
Right.
6 people each, so everybody gets a reading. And then the following week, between the 20th and the 24th of February, I will be in Houston, and you can get free tickets to be on the Great Day Houston show and see me there, plus events at Body, Mind, and Soul. Those are just a few of the things I have coming up. So I invite everybody to visit my website, afterlifefrequency.com. And, we're scheduling a one-on-one telephone Skype reading or Skype readings as well. And I'm going to be all over the U.S. And really exciting tour. I'm going to be in Sedona in March at the Sedona Ascension Retreats,
Hmm.
San Francisco, actually San Rafael, which is just north of San Francisco, in May, and that's just for starters. I got a whole lineup this whole year.
Mark, what was it that happened in your life that set you on this fascinating journey that you've been on for so many years? When you were a little guy, did you ever think that you would be helping so many people in so many different ways?
Rob, nobody's ever really asked me that particular question. But when I was a little kid, I always liked helping people.
Hmm.
And I remember when I was in like fifth or sixth grade, there was a speaker came to our classroom where I was at, and he was asking us, what do you think, what do you like to do? And I remember after listening to me, he said, "You like to help people. That's what you like to do." And so whether it was
Hmm.
in my capacity as an attorney and now in my capacity as a psychic medium and paranormal investigator, near death experience researcher, ancient mysteries expert, I'm helping people in a lot of ways, and to me it's very humbling, it's very rewarding, and to me the greatest gift is giving back to people.
X Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Mark Anthony. And if you'd like to check out his website, it's www.afterlifefrequency.com. What is the afterlife frequency, Mark?
The afterlife frequency, some people call it the other side, some
Hmm.
people call it heaven. It's the afterlife. Everything from quantum physics, we know that everything's made of molecules, which in turn are made of atoms, which in turn are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn are made of the smallest particle of electromagnetic energy known as a quantum. And that's where the term quantum physics comes from. And the thing is, Rob, everything in the material universe, you, me, the radio waves, exons being transmitted on, the rings of Saturn, the light from the sun, and beyond, are all on the subatomic level made of electromagnetic energy. And everything has its own, everything vibrates at different frequencies. And so the one of my signature theories is the electromagnetic soul, which is what we truly are, which is pure consciousness, a soul, a spirit that is eternal electromagnetic energy. And so our brain didn't create our soul, our electromagnetic soul. It merely hosts it, much the way a computer hard drive hosts the programs on it, but didn't create them.
Right.
So when we die, Rob, the electromagnetic soul leaves the physical body and goes to a higher vibration, which I call the afterlife frequency. So it's another dimension which runs parallel to this one. The best way to understand it would be that our world is AM radio and the afterlife frequency is FM radio.
And you, as a psychic medium, are able to tune in both frequencies.
Correct. And it's really fascinating. It certainly is made for an interesting life. And I thank the divine power that we call God every single day of my life, that I have been honored to inherit this ability to help people connect with their loved ones in spirit.
What was it like the first time, Mark, that you sat down and were able to connect with someone on the other side, because you had someone on this side that needed closure, that needed that final goodbye? How did that make you feel, knowing that you, Mark Anthony, were playing such a pivotal part in somebody's life, bringing them closure?
You know, Rob, it's been going on in my life so long. It started with me when I was 3.5, and both my parents had these abilities as well, and they could see who I was interacting with. Mm-hmm. But the first time that I, in a quasi-professional capacity, it's an interesting story. I was doing, I did a connection for this woman whose son had died. And he died from an overdose, and very painful for her, and the tears just flowed from her eyes. And I could see the healing there. And afterwards we were talking, and not too long before that, I had lost my mother, and I realized she was a mother who lost a son, and I was a son who lost a mother. Well, spirits are fascinating, and one of the other concepts that I've developed is known as spiritual synchronicity, and spirits can influence a chain of events to guide us to be in the right place at the right time. So probably about 1.5 years later, I was at home and I was working on my irrigation system on my front lawn, and a sprinkler head had busted. So a friend of mine was helping me, and of course we didn't have the right sprinkler head, so we had to go to the hardware store. And I live on the barrier island in Florida, so we had to take the bridge into town.
Mark, we're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here, because I do have to take my first break, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
Exonation, right. Mark Anthony is our very special guest this hour. www.afterlifefrequency.com, and Mark and I will be back on the other side of the short break as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us around the world on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ here in St. Catharines, and streaming us on classic1220.ca.
Canada is the Yukon miner. Canada is the country loving peace. We have peace in our valleys. We're happy and contented. We have peace in our cities, and our boundaries have no chains. We have a voice that is calling, telling all free men.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down at the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early ship was the pride of the
Mark Anthony is our special guest, Exonation, www.afterlifefrequency.com. And Mark, before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about, there you were with a friend fixing your sprinkler system. And of course, as all happens with us guys, apparently, and I'm living testament to that, you didn't have the right piece.
Yeah, yeah. I've got toolboxes full of screws and sprinkler parts, but of course I didn't have the right one. So I live on the Barrier Island, and I said, well, let's go to the hardware store. And so we went over to the mainland, and I said, I for some reason I feel that we need to take a different causeway, because there's a series of causeways that run along the Barrier Island connecting us to the mainland. And so we went over this other one, and before we got to it, there was an art show going on. And I said, well, let's check it out. And, my friend's like, why? I go, I don't know. I feel that we need to. So we get out and we're walking around, and I saw all these artists doing sidewalk chalk art. And I felt drawn to this one woman, and oh my God, what she was drawing was so amazing. It looked like a photograph, and it was of a rainforest tree frog. I mean, it was so beautiful. Now, the funny thing is, while we were driving around town, I kept hearing the Beatles song, Hey Jude, in my head. Mm-hmm. And I kept humming, Hey Jude, and take a sad song and make it better, and the Beatles are back in the news. They just won a Grammy Award 50 years after they broke up, which is cool. So I'm humming this, Hey Jude. My friend's like, what is it with you and this Beatles song? I said, I don't know. I'm just getting this whole Hey Jude thing. So we pull off at this art show, and I'm walking around, and I see this lady doing this incredible sidewalk chalk art, and I walk up to her and I go, that is really amazing. And she looks up at me and she goes, you're Mark Anthony, aren't you? And I go, why do I know you? She goes, you did a reading for me about 1.5 years ago. My son died.
Oh, man.
And all of a sudden I remembered her, and I said, yes. And he came through, and he delivered a beautiful message to her. And she said, well, here's my card so you can get in touch with me. And her name as an artist was Jude.
Wow.
And I know. And I'm like, oh, my God. And then I told her that, and I said, you take a sad song and make it better. And she kind of, tears came to her eyes, and she explained to me that that's what she does do, because she was a caretaker. Her husband just had both his legs amputated because of diabetes. She took care of her parents who died. Now she was taking care of him, and through all of it, she made this incredible art. And so when things like that happen, I mean, of all the songs in the world that I'm humming that just come to my head is Hey Jude. And then I am directed to take a different causeway home and decide to stop at an art show and guided right to this woman. That was the spirit of her son. And that's the beauty of spirit communication, because the thing is, Rob, spirits are not here to harm us or frighten us. They're here because they love us. And I was being guided to her to give her a message that she really needed from her son. And it gets even more intense. Not only was her name Jude, but that day of the art show, she said, well, I wasn't supposed to be here. This was a last minute thing. And she said, and this is the anniversary of the day my son died.
Holy Lord.
I know. So it's like bada boom, ba boom, ba boom.
Yeah, exactly.
And I sat down on the sidewalk next to her, and we talked for a while. And I mean, it was just, when you look at coincidence, there's no coincidence there. There were too many factors that had to fall into the right place to put us in the right place at the right time. So it was just such an honor to do that for her. And this is what I love about making connections for people in spirit with their loved ones here on planet Earth, because it does bring messages of love, healing, and resolution.
I can't believe all the coincidences in that story that you just shared with us. What are the odds, Mark?
Well, spirits are capable of perceiving what we call the future. And I was doing a reading for this woman, and you got to realize my electromagnetic soul theory has been adopted by a number of scientists. And they said that my observations, my theories coincide with their research in survival of consciousness, afterlife, and near-death experience research. And since the time of Albert Einstein, which was right around the birth of quantum physics, we've had quantum physics now as a dedicated field of study for over a century. And when we get back to the quantum, the subatomic particles, scientists, since Einstein all the way up to today, theorize that on the quantum level, time doesn't exist. And that everything that has happened, is happening, will happen, is occurring simultaneously. And people tell me, well, that's really hard to wrap my head around. And I said, well, yeah, it did take Albert Einstein, Max Planck, Louis de Broglie, Niels Bohr, Mileva Einstein to figure all this out. Okay, I mean, this is about as intense as it gets. So I'm doing a reading for this woman, and her mother's spirit comes through and says, take my grandson to the eye doctor. And the client said, well, I don't have a son, but I have a nephew, my sister's son, and he's been complaining about his eyesight. He's 7 years old. I say, okay, well, I guess your mother's spirit wants you to take this little boy to the eye doctor. I said, and now she's giving me a song. I get a lot of songs, among other things, but I start getting Tutti Frutti, Ah Rudy by Little Richard. Remember that song, Tutti Frutti, Ah Rudy? So I'm singing it to her, and she's, looking at me like I got 6 heads, and she goes, well, I know who Little Richard was, but it doesn't make any sense. I go, well, that's what I'm getting. Well, 2 weeks later, she sends me an email, and she said, I called my sister and said, we got to take your 7-year-old son to the eye doctor. The mom spirit said so. And her sister said, well, let's do it because he's been complaining of headaches, and he says he can't really read his homework. So my client, her sister, and the little boy, they go to the eye doctor, and she said, as soon as we walked into the doctor's office, on the radio, it starts playing Tutti Frutti, All Rudy by Little Richard. And it's a cool story, but then I started looking at it from the electromagnetic soul perspective. Radio waves are part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Yeah. So what was going on there is the mom was saying, okay, take my grandson to the eye doctor. And because the electromagnetic soul is part of the EM spectrum. We all are. It's just they're moving at a much higher vibration, and they're able to perceive what we call the future, to let her know that she was in the right place at the right time. She projected to me the very song that would be playing 2 weeks from that time, the moment they walked into the doctor's office. And so when you start looking at spirit communication through the filter, not just of faith, but also through science and quantum physics, man, it is really fascinating.
Well, especially since there are so many radio stations in any given market, AM, FM, and then you've got the different audio platforms now on the internet, satellite radio. To home in on that specific station at that specific time to that specific song, and being in the industry, I know how many different hoops had to be jumped through in order to make that happen. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know it's just astounding, the things that come through. And spirits, it's really fascinating how they can give us medical information. Now, I always caution people, when a spirit, if I'm doing a reading for you and a spirit brings up a medical issue that you're dealing with, people say, well, how do they know that? Once again, they're EM energy, and they're able to scan your body, and they pick up energetic anomalies and problems, and they'll call it to my attention. They may bring up treatments. Now, I always caution people, that doesn't mean start doing the treatment. You clear everything with your doctor first. They may be bringing up a treatment because they're trying to caution you this is not the right treatment. There may be a better one. And I think, so you always have to be careful about jumping to conclusions when spirits give us future events. That's, and that's just out of an abundance of caution. Plus, that's where my legal background comes in about you got to be careful about jumping to conclusions when you're dealing with medical that's being transmitted by a spirit. Now, most of the time, what we're getting, we're interpreting properly, but they could be trying to warn you that, no, this isn't the right treatment. There's a better one. And I've had a number of incidents where that's happened as well. So spirit communication, it helps people understand that someone you loved so much who died did not just disintegrate, but instead they live on as an immortal living spirit, and that your relationship with that person has gone from one of a physical nature to one of a spiritual nature. So even though the body may no longer function, who we are still does.
So what you're saying, Mark, if I understand you correctly, is that the spirit, when you're talking about the medical aspect, does, because they are a frequency within the electromagnetic realm, they can actually look at us as an MRI and relate that information to you.
Precisely. I was doing a session for this gentleman recently, and when it was over, he said, "I got to tell you something." I said, "What?" He said, "A year ago, you did a reading for my wife, and her mother, who passed, came through and said that our son, we need to get him into the doctor right away because there is a congenital defect of his heart, and unless the doctors specifically scan for it, nobody will know." And he said, "We just got back from the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio where my son had open heart surgery." And he said that when we brought him to the doctor and said, "You need to scan for a congenital defect," they did. And the doctor said, "How in the world did you know to look for this? Because unless we were specifically looking for this, we never would have found it. And if he doesn't get the surgery, he'll die."
All right, Mark, stand by. We've got to take our break. Exo Nation, Mark Anthony is our special guest. www.afterlifefrequency.com. And Mark and I will be back after this short pause for a good cause here on the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on the X Zone Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, streaming us around the world on classic1220.ca.
Saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. a main hatchway gave in, he said.
Mark Anthony is my guest to this hour, X Zone Nation, www.afterlifefrequency.com. Mark, where does reincarnation fit into the frequencies and the afterlife frequency?
When we die, think of your soul as a drop of water.
Okay.
And when it leaves the body, the electromagnetic soul plunges into what I call the collective consciousness, like the eternal sea of souls. That's the afterlife frequency, and there's different frequencies in there. Now, for people who have a near-death experience, that drop of water bounces back and then returns to their body. But that's another show. That's another episode. But with reincarnation, what happens is the EMS goes to another dimension, and then eventually it recycles, if you will, into a new host, meaning a fetus. And so the electromagnetic soul provides the scientific basis for a whole array of spiritual phenomenon. It explains mediumship. First off, the existence of the soul in an afterlife. It explains the reality of spirit communication. It explains how near-death experiences, deathbed visions, out-of-body experiences, and reincarnation is possible. Because our electromagnetic soul is a coherent quantum field. Basically, when you die, you take you with you. But when you reattach to a new host, there seems to be, for the most part, the memories of the prior life are not immediately accessible by the human brain. However, there are many exceptions. And there's a lot of what's known as court, case of the reincarnation type, where children especially, young children start recalling details of prior lives. And there's two ways, Rob, that people can remember a prior life. One is court, which is memories that usually a child has, and they start talking about a prior life. Then there's PLR, past life regression therapy. And that's a form, that's hypnosis, where and if you're going to do PLR, please go to a licensed and a certified hypnotherapist. It has to be done under proper clinical conditions. And through the PLR therapy, you can go into, and you apparently get past that barrier, that veil that your brain keeps you from accessing prior memories from prior lives. And you will go into and start to access memories from prior incarnations.
Okay, so what you said something about attaching to a host, a new host. It seems like there's a little bit of science fiction that is actually turning into reality here.
It does appear that way, and it's easy for people to scoff at this. They say, oh, there's no proof of reincarnation. Au contraire, but there is.
Yes.
I mean, so many documented cases, and now at the University of Virginia, the Division of Perceptual Studies, Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, since the 1970s, Dr. Ian Stevenson founded that department and began to study cases of the reincarnation type with children, applying the scientific method. Since he's passed on, Dr. James Tucker has stepped into that role, and their findings are incredibly impressive. Now, it's not just here in the United States. I mean, it's other countries where reincarnation has been studied. India is really fascinating because reincarnation is a basic tenet of Hinduism and Jainism, which are Hinduism certainly is the main religion of India, and Jainism is another religion unique to India, which also embraces reincarnation. And the Indians have been studying and documenting cases of reincarnation for the past 5,000 years.
So how does reincarnation fit into the religious philosophies, the main religious philosophies I'm seeing outside of Hinduism? For example, in the Bible, are there cases? Is there evidence of reincarnation within the Bible?
Yes, there is. And it's funny because I was looking on the internet the other day, and they said the scripture is against reincarnation. And it's like, yeah, no, it isn't. There are a number of areas in the Bible, one of my favorite and one of the most studied passages is Genesis 28, verses 10 through 12, what's known as Jacob's ladder.
Right.
And yeah, Jacob, he sets out for Beersheba, and he lays down, puts his head on a pillow, and he has this dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And when he awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it, and that this is the house of God, this is the gate of heaven. So it's kind of cool. So, 3,000 years before Led Zeppelin, we have the original Stairway to Heaven. But Jacob's Ladder is one of the most studied passages in Scripture. And one of the interpretations is that it's a metaphor for reincarnation, that the cycle of descending into human life followed by ascent into spiritual life, followed by a return to human life. In other words, the angels leaving heaven, going down the ladder, and then turning around and going back up. And so Jacob's ladder is considered a metaphor for reincarnation. But it gets even better, Rob, when we fast forward into the New Testament to what is known as the Transfiguration, which is found in Matthew 17, Mark 9, and Luke 9. Jesus takes a select group of apostles. It says Peter, James, and John. They go to the top of a mountain, and all of a sudden, Jesus begins to glow white. And there are mist forms around them, and the spirits of Moses and Elijah appear on either side of him. Well, understandably so. The disciples are rather freaked out.
Yep.
And when this is over, they're going down the mountain, and Jesus says, look, don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. And the disciples asked him, why then do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first? And Jesus replied, to be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things. But I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. Then the scripture says, then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist. Let's look at that for a second. The prophet Elijah lived 800 years before Jesus. And what Jesus is telling them is Elijah came and basically he appeared in the form of John the Baptist. John the Baptist was Jesus's first cousin. And John the Baptist was executed by order of Herod Antipas, who was Herod the Great's son. That's a whole nother story. All right. So basically, what Jesus is saying here is John the Baptist was Elijah in a prior life. At least this is what progressive Christians interpret this as. Hindus, Buddhists, Jains all zero in on the Transfiguration as very possibly one of the passages in the Bible which was not about reincarnation, which was not edited out.
Could we also?
And so, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Could we also look at Mother Nature and the way with the four seasons could be a very simplistic way of trying to explain reincarnation?
It certainly is a fascinating. Because you have spring where life begins, summer where life flourishes, autumn where there's the decline of life, and then winter is death, and then the cycle continues.
Yes, that's right.
On an unending cycle. We also know from the laws of quantum physics, the second law of thermodynamics, that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. And even quantum physicists like Dr. Michio Kaku said eternal life does not violate the laws of physics. So there's a lot of scientists who are looking at this saying, well, how do you explain some of these things? How much time do we have before the next break?
2 minutes.
Okay. How about when we come back, I'll give us a reincarnation story, and we'll take it from there.
All right, let me ask you a quick question that I'm sure that we'll be able to answer within the minute and 50 seconds we have now. Where do you see AI when it comes to helping solve some of the mysteries that you have been delving into for many years?
That is a fascinating question. I think AI is going to be fantastic when it comes to medical diagnoses. When it comes to the metaphysical and the spiritual, that remains to be seen. And if AI actually starts taking and drawing upon all the research that's there, it could at least come to or draw a hypothesis that this could theoretically be a case of reincarnation as opposed to, oh, this kid's making it up.
There's a lot of great things that we have in this world yet to even fathom. And I will often wonder, Mark, how different the Bible would have been written if the events of those many years ago happened today. How different theology would be. How different religion would be.
Yeah, it would be very different because it is believed that in the early Christian era, there was a theologian in Alexandria, Egypt, which at the time was Christian, wrote Origen. His name was Origen of Alexandria, that we go through, even Satan can emerge from the pit to be with God, and that we go through a succession of lifetimes until we ascend to this higher frequency. And then a couple hundred years after him, in the 6th century, at the 5th Ecumenical Council of Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, which at the time was the capital of the Roman Empire, the 5th Ecumenical Council banned reincarnation as heresy.
You and I have to take our final break, my good friend. Please stand by. And as always, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your time with us here on the X Zone. It's always appreciated.
Oh, thank you.
Mark and I will be back as we wrap up this first hour here in the X Zone. And if you'd like to find out more about Mark, it's very simple. He's got a great website. You'll be able to find out where he's going to be appearing, hopefully in an area near you. His website is afterlifefrequency.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and Mark and I return as we wrap up this first hour. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. Mark Anthony is our special guest, and Mark's website is afterlifefrequency.com. Mark, before we went to the break, we kind of cut it short, and you had a story that you wanted to share with us.
Certainly. There's two ways people can remember past lives. One is where children start to recall them, and that's called a CORT, C-O-R-T, case of the reincarnation type. Then there's past life regression therapy, PLR, where someone's hypnotized and taken back to prior lives. Well, on my show, The Psychic and the Doc, which is every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, we had a guest on who was a former Indiana Police Department captain of the Homicide Division of Indianapolis. And in 1992, this captain met a hypnotherapist who used past life regression therapy. And that is used to treat people with mental and or physical pain with no discernible cause. And the patient is hypnotized, Rob, with the objective of going into a past life to discover the basis of the pain. And Robert Snow, he scoffed at PLR as goofy people trying to find a way to blame their problems on someone else in another lifetime. And the therapist said, well, why don't you try it? I challenge you. Okay, well, when you challenge an Indianapolis police chief, he said, okay, well, all of a sudden during the PLR session, he goes into 3 prior lifetimes. And it's cool the way he described it. It says like a theme park ride. He could see, smell, feel, hear, and taste things while traveling through another lifetime. In case 3 different lifetimes, one of which he was a woman. Okay, now that is not exactly what this tough guy, big bruiser police, captain expected.
Right.
But it was the most recent lifetime that was the game changer. Suddenly he saw himself on a cobblestone street, horses and buggies, and to him it looked like the late 1800s. There were lampposts that were gas lit, and he went through a window into this looked like a mansion, and he saw himself as an artist, a male artist, painting a portrait, get this, Rob, of a hunchback woman. And he said it came into his head that I hate painting portraits, but I need the money. And he said, I feel connected to France, but I died somewhere else in some big city. So when he came out of this, he was intrigued. Now, this was back in 1992, and the internet wasn't available for public use at that time. Mm-hmm. So he started looking everywhere for portraits of a hunchback lady. He couldn't find anything. Went to all these libraries. But it was driving him nuts. He said, I got to find this out because why am I thinking this? So his wife said, well, can we go on vacation to New Orleans? So they go to New Orleans, and while perusing an art gallery in the French Quarter, Robert suddenly froze. Before him on an easel was the portrait of the hunchback woman. And he said, this isn't possible. How can this be? Okay, so now he's turning into the cop, and he said, in 38 years of police work, nothing shocked him like this. And the gallery owner explained that the artist's name was J. Carroll Beckwith. He was born in 1852 and died in 1917. He was American, but spent a lot of time in France. So Robert's investigation led him to New York City, the big city where J. Carroll Beckwith died. And he went to the National Academy of Design, which kept records on artists, and he found J. Carroll Beckwith's diaries on microfilm. And apparently his prior incarnation was just as meticulous as he was, because his diary was 17,000 pages long.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Robert pored over the diaries and verified every one of the details he saw in his past life regression therapy as true. And he discovered Beckwith typically painted portraits, created no masterpieces, and wasn't famous. Now, I think his credibility is bolstered because why would you think I was an artist that didn't create masterpieces? I wasn't famous. My career basically went nowhere. If he went around saying he was Michelangelo or Monet or Picasso, that would be a whole different story instead of an obscure, unknown portrait artist. I always thought that was a pretty fascinating case.
It certainly is. And something just crossed my mind when you were telling me that, sharing that story with us, Mark. Is it possible? Now, this is a stretch. I don't even know where this came from, to be honest with you. Is it possible that reincarnation could explain some of the transgenderism that we're seeing today?
Yeah, it is an interesting thought. It's a very interesting thought, because the transgendered people that I've interacted with and talked to, I'm convinced that this is a real phenomenon.
Yeah.
And, they just believe that they're in the wrong body.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it is entirely possible. As a psychic medium, a paranormal investigator, a near-death experience researcher, let me answer the question like this. Suffice it to say, I will keep an open mind, because when you're studying these type of things, you have to have an open mind.
Yeah.
When people say, well, I'm a skeptic, I don't believe that. No, that's not a skeptic. That's a cynic. A skeptic may not believe in something, but a skeptic is open to persuasion through credible evidence.
It certainly would explain a few things. Like I've had the opportunity of speaking to members of the transgender community, and you're right. The story is always the same, that they were in the wrong body, and to persecute these people because of
it's ridiculous.
It is.
And who's going to who's going to say that and put themselves through all of that if it wasn't true?
Exactly.
Oh, I think, well, it's like when people say, well, gay people choose this, right? The gay people I've talked to, it's like, choose this. That's how I'm wired.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to choose a lifestyle that my parents are going to reject me, my religion's going to condemn me, my friends are going to cast me out. I can lose my job, be discriminated against. Yeah, that really sounds great. Where do I sign? You know what I mean? It's like, and with transgendered people, it's even more intense.
Yes.
What they go through. So part of being spiritual, part of being embracing Christ consciousness is having compassion. You may not understand other people, but because you don't understand them doesn't mean you should fear them, much less persecute them.
Nobody deserves persecution. Nobody.
No, nobody does.
Mark, what's in your future, Mark? You've talked about other people's, but what about you? You've got all these U.S. dates that you're going to be going on and seeing people across the United States. Any new books coming up?
Well, I was very honored. I was just voted Visionary of the Year by Best Holistic Life magazine, and they're going to feature a special edition, the June edition, with me on the cover. And I was just very overwhelmed when that happened. And I was notified that I have been designated a notable graduate of the Arthur Findlay College for the Advancement of Psychic Science in England. And I was recently awarded honoree status for the Spiritual Awakenings Circle of Honor. And just yesterday, Helping Parents Heal, which is a beautiful organization, asked me to be on their board of directors. And so I'm just very humbled that my work is touching so many people, and I'm going to be in Houston at Body, Mind, and Soul, and on Great Day Houston in 2 weeks, and then in March at the Sedona Ascension Retreats. I'm one of the keynote speakers for the 50th anniversary of the International Association for Near-Death Studies in August. I'll be speaking at the Omega Institute in October, and in November at the Mediumship Summit at Edgar Cayce Association for Research and Enlightenment. And there's probably other venues, and if I've forgotten anybody, I'm really sorry. But I'll be doing a lot of traveling, and I am always working on my 4th book. But in the meantime, I do write for Best Holistic Life magazine, and you can find out about all of these things by visiting my website, afterlifefrequency.com, and certainly I do one-on-one readings for people. You can find out about that on my website as well.
Mark, we've got to say so long for tonight. I do want to thank you so much for joining us. Safe travels, my friend, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone.
Absolutely, Rob. You have a great night. To all the listeners, thank you for tuning in to the X Zone.
Good night, Mark.
Good night.
Exo Nation, I'll be back on the other side of this break as hour number 2 starts momentarily here in the X Zone on the X Zone Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, streaming classic1220.ca.
We're ready for tomorrow. We have faith in our children, for our future's in their hands. We have a voice that is calling, telling us to keep on hoping, for time will make this wild land great, and that's what Canada is. Canada is la belle province. Canada is the Yukon miner. Canada is a country loving peace. We have peace in our valleys. We're happy and contented. We have peace in our cities, and our boundaries have no chains. We have a voice that is calling, telling all free men we're willing to show them how to live in peace, for that's what Canada is. Canada is the Rocky Mountains. Canada is Prince Edward Island. Canada is a country made